Hi, everybody. It's Emily with Emily T Astrology, and I am your host for Hermes Speaks. This is your weekly astro check-in where we explore the current quality of time and we listen to Hermes, Mercury, our messenger god, speak to us normally through the written word. But this week, we are going to listen to some messages from Mercury through conversation. I am very excited to say that I have a friend here with me today, the brilliant astrologer Kelsey Faith Wells, and she's going to be joining me for a conversation about this week's astrology. So welcome, Kelsey. How are you today?
Hey everyone, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here joining you for Hermes Speaks this week. It's a big week, so I'm excited to kind of chat with you about how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, it is a big week. Kelsey and I are co-hosts over at Nightlight Astrology for the monthly horoscope episodes, but we actually met before working together in this way at NORWAC last year, and I'm really excited that in less than 2 months, we're going to see each other again. We'll both be there again. Do you want to share anything, Kelsey, about how you came to astrology or what your style is or anything like that?
Sure. I came to astrology with just a general sense of wonder. I'm a Scorpio rising, so I like to know and to understand and get into the nitty gritty of things. My background is in psychology. I work in mental health. So I work with patients who are struggling with anxiety and depression and a host of other things in the human experience. But astrology really felt like more of a hobby and fun thing that I did on the side until I noticed how useful it can be in the healing process and how much looking at archetypes and transits in terms of the timing of things can really help us with, astrological anxiety, which some of us might be feeling right now, actually, with some of these major transits. So my style is to reduce that as much as possible to help people feel prepared and free, despite the window of fate that we kind of move through when we learn astrology. We kind of think about fate a little differently. But this week in particular, there's a lot of free will as well. So with all this Aries energy. But yes, that is how I've come to practice astrology. I do consultations. I've really enjoyed working one-on-one with people, and I love having conversations with other astrologers like Emily. So
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here and talk with you this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So much of what I feel about astrology too is that I always say that it's a tool for self-reflection, awareness, and ultimately self-acceptance. So it's all about healing for me with astrology for
Yes.
sure. Well, we are looking at this big week with a lot of Aries energy. We're looking at the April 15th through the 21st, I think, right? And the big things that we are going to be discussing today on April 17th, we have a new moon in Aries. And it's not just the sun and the moon that are in Aries at the time of the new moon, but we have 6 or even 8 planets there if you count Chiron and Eris. They are in Aries as well. And then we have the classical Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, and the modern Neptune also in Aries at the time of the new moon. So we are going to be pulling up that chart and discussing it. And then also a few days later, on the 19th and the 20th of April, we have a triple conjunction taking place between Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. So we'll take a look at that as well. But in general, it's a week of one note, one tone, Aries energy. So, how do you feel, Kelsey? Should I bring up the chart and we'll just dive in and
Yeah,
talk
let's do
about?
it.
Okay, so we have here on the screen the chart of the new moon. You can see here the sun and the moon are at 27 degrees of Aries. Then we have here Neptune, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and then I threw them in there because they felt like they might be saying something. but Eris and Chiron as well in Aries. So you can see a massive pileup in Aries. Kelsey, just first impression, first thought, what's the first thing that wants to be said about this new moon chart for you?
I feel my first impression, I'm not always someone who looks at Chiron, but it's hard not to with this new moon. So I was thinking about healing identity wounds by directly facing them and really looking deeply at our inner critic and what that voice is telling us about this new chapter that we may feel less than prepared to start, yet we feel this fire beneath us to start anyway, maybe before we're ready. I'm thinking about Chiron as this moment with the new moon to think about belonging, but really with Chiron, from what I have read and studied a little about Chiron, is that there's a feeling of a lack of belonging because of abandonment, maybe at some point, and how we may have been abandoned by ourselves over this several years. It's been maybe 5-6 years of Chiron in Aries. And I just, for fun, was looking at Chiron's transit, and it will enter Taurus here soon. But later on in January 2027, Chiron actually stations direct at this degree. So I was feeling like that was important.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I think Chiron actually first moved into Aries in, I want to say it was 2018, although it wasn't officially in Aries, not to return back to Pisces until 2019. So it has been a solid 7 years here. And that, I love that you brought that in about it, that it's stationing on this degree. And right around this degree as well, I think it was at 25 degrees that Chiron and Eris just made a conjunction a few weeks ago. They come together every 52, 53 years also. So it feels like this is kind of a hot little section of the sky for a bit. And it's towards the end of the sign, right? 27, 28, 29, those final degrees. So I love what you said about healing identity wounds by facing them head on and by jumping into it, harnessing that urgent sense of fire that we feel even before we really feel prepared or ready to go there. That feels very appropriate for this new moon. And new moons, of course, are seeding points. They're starting points. They're starting new cycles. And that feels like, of course, yes, they are a new starting point for the following lunar cycle. So the next 28, 29 days, right, before we have another new moon. But with that you brought in about Chiron stationing in January of 2027, this feels like a seeding point in a healing process potentially for our identity wounds, that we might feel something in January comes up. And you know what I'm thinking about too? We had a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries in, I think, April of 2023. And so that was around these degrees too, these last like 4 or 5 degrees of the sign. So
Yeah.
it feels like this hot section of the sky. And then we also had one in 2024 that was conjunct Chiron, a solar eclipse.
Yes.
So there's this Chiron identity wound healing thing that feels like it's being like the wound. It keeps getting poked, like we're in the process of maybe or it keeps getting cauterized or it's getting sterilized or something in these longer periods of time. And this is just one of those within a longer section of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It feels like this wound has been reopened many times. And This is Aries cardinal fire, so can be a little impulsive or reckless. So maybe the way we chose to heal this wound in the past was done with some recklessness. And now that Saturn is here in Aries, we may be thinking about the process of healing a little differently. I was also thinking about this is a metaphor I talk about a lot with my patients and my clients, is just when we heal like a physical wound, we often have to clean it out with alcohol to sterilize it, and it burns and it hurts a lot to do that cleaning process. But when you go through that, it actually heals without an infection later, or it can finally heal because the impurity is gone, and we've actually faced the healing process head on by targeting it with something as strong as alcohol. So I was thinking about that too, where especially with Aries here, we're a little irritable and angry about something. Maybe this is translating to motivation to finally fight for something for yourself, fight for something that means really a new chapter begins in your life if you choose to kind of go to battle here. And I think a lot of us will be fighting with ourselves. And that can be really tough when you're on offense and defense and you're trying to grapple with the past and maybe dating back all the way to 2019. I think that this is, with the eclipses that you mentioned, this is an area of our charts that has been really hit with eclipse-sized new beginnings and endings. So this week feels like important in terms of really facing what's taking off here and what's ending. And also with Mercury now in Aries, I think this is when we really start to feel that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. It's been in the background since February, but this is when it really comes to a boil, and we have to do something with that fire. And fire is an alchemical agent. Things change when they heat up. And so I think all this heat, if used wisely, can be used for a big shift in your life, to focus in on what you want to alchemize.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought in Mercury, because Mercury just entered Aries on the 14th of April, so just a few days prior to this new moon. And, Mercury just spent a long time in Pisces because it had a retrograde there. And so in one sense, it's been out of its retrograde shadow for a little while, but one way of looking at any retrograde is when the planet finally leaves the sign and gains a new sign, and therefore a new kind of qualitative expression. And so Mercury, this is the official end to that retrograde that we just went through when Mercury was in Pisces, because it's now in a new sign. So I love that you're bringing that in. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction, of course, this is a very slow, long-term cycle. They come together every 36 years, and it's very fresh. They just conjoined less than 2 months ago. And so I think that bringing in Mercury, finally gaining a new sign after that retrograde, and kind of communicating to us in our own ways of thinking, our own ways of processing information, how to really press the start button on whatever that Saturn-Neptune conjunction wants to initiate in our lives. And by the way, if you're wanting kind of a personal look about where all of this Aries energy falls in your chart, specific to your rising sign, your chart configuration, Kelsey and I are two of the co-hosts on Nightlight Astrology's monthly horoscope episodes, and our April horoscope focused on this Aries pileup. So head over to that channel if you want a horoscope for your specific chart configuration, and I'll link that in the description of this video as well. But with so many planets, even if we take out, Chiron and Aries, and we just look at the traditional, there's no room for hesitation. There's no more room for hesitation. There's no more room for will I, won't I? it's like it's time to just step on the gas pedal, pass go, collect your $200. Let's get started, right? It feels very initiatory.
Yeah, and with Mercury too, the recent retrograde in Pisces, the sign of its detriment and fall, it's been maybe hard for a lot of us, as you mentioned, with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction occurring on February 20th. Mercury was in Pisces before the retrograde. I think that it's been hard for a lot of us to get mentally on board with this new beginning. And
Hmm.
maybe we had to go back into the past and resolve some emotional themes of moving on, some transitions that needed to take place mentally for us. Now that Mercury is in Aries, we get to connect the dots a little bit. And yes, Neptune is right at the gates, so we might feel some detachment from reality a little bit in moving on. But I don't know. I'm a little bit of an optimist with astrology. I always try to encourage the most positive outcomes for transits. And I think that Neptune's influence here can really help us to dream and to visualize us stepping into this new chapter. Although there could be some Neptunian fog that feels daunting, sometimes that's an important step in the manifestation process, is to feel confused so we can find our way that is resonant. And also, I found it interesting that the moon enters Aries, I believe, like the balsamic moon would enter Aries on the 15th. And so from the 15th and 16th, the balsamic moon is passing through conjunction with Mercury, with Neptune, with Mars, then with Saturn. So it's almost like this balsamic moon is like weaving together the story for us of what these planets are doing, and trying to initiate for us, and then moves into conjunction with Chiron, and we're like, ouchie, like this might be tough for me. And then the moon hits the sun, and we have that new beginning.
Yeah.
And it feels important to kind of pay attention to the balsamic moon, just because all the planets are in Aries right before the sun.
Yes, exactly. I love that. The moon, as Whitney Kranz always calls the moon, the weaver or the witness of divine timing. And I just went back, took the chart back. But if you see, the moon will first have to move into Aries. And before she can conjoin the sun, she has to go through all of those planets, right? She's got to conjoin Mercury and then Neptune, Mars, and Saturn. So, yeah, I think that if we can be in stillness, if we can find some stillness and some quiet and allow space during that balsamic moon phase to just kind of like process and sift through all that has been going on for us, that yes, by the time we do get to that new moon on the 17th, we'll really be able to, even though we're not going to be prepared yet, I still think that the lack of preparedness is apt. We will be feeling that, but we can press that go button. I also love you bringing in the Mercury, that like we haven't, are in our minds, we haven't been able to kind of wrap our minds around this new beginning. And I think that actually, unless there's more you want to say about the new moon, is a wonderful way to segue into the triple conjunction. And this is on the 19th at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast. We have all three planets, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, within 1 degree of each other. They're all at this time on the 7th degree of Aries, because I think this is the culmination and the new seeding point of some other longer term cycles with Mercury and Mars. This is the final of 5 conjunctions that they will have made with each other, starting back in October of 2025 was their first conjunction. On October 19th in Scorpio, they made a second conjunction on November 12th in Sagittarius, a third on January 17th in Capricorn, the fourth on March 15th in Pisces, and then now this is the fifth And it technically takes place on the 20th at 8 degrees of Aries. But so this is like the wrapping up and new seeding point of a Mercury Mars cycle. And also, we have the Mars Saturn conjunction, and that's a 2-year cycle. The last time Mars and Saturn came together was April 10th of 2024 at 14 degrees of Pisces. So this is another kind of longer cycle that is culminating and completing and then reseeding. And I think that all that we were talking about with the new moon around Mercury coming in and allowing us to actually start to process within our minds. And we've been hesitant with all this lingering Pisces energy back there. We haven't quite been ready. We haven't quite been willing or open emotionally to starting these new processes, these new beginnings. This really feels like, we have that new moon, it's a new seeding moment, and then just 2-3 days later, we have these other new beginning or completion / new beginning moments with the Mercury, Mars, and Saturn triple conjunction that it just feels like there's no going back, right? There's no going back beyond this point. What do you think, Kelsey?
Yeah, this does feel like an inception point while also marking the end of something that has run its course and actually serves as a catalyst for something new to take off. I think it can feel frustrating. Mars, Saturn can make us a little irritable when we're trying to push and we have to be patient. But something about the dignity of Mars being at home in Aries and Saturn being in fall here, to me, it feels like we will take action. We just may not feel prepared, like I was saying earlier. We might have to because of other contextual clues in our life that are pushing us to take action towards something. This feels like needing to be courageous and to take the enthusiasm of this Aries season that is now almost a Taurus season because the sun will actually ingress into Taurus during this time. I believe on the 19th, by 6:30-ish Pacific time, PM, the sun will enter Taurus. And I feel like that's actually a good thing. So we can kind of like be a little more practical and grounded about whatever is maybe pushing our buttons, or this could also be about focused discipline to really take care of something that needs your attention acutely. And over the long term, this could also indicate the need to prioritize short-term priorities versus long-term priorities and where that goes in the order of operations. The sun in Taurus could also emphasize the need to stabilize all this fiery energy, which I think we can use to find that confidence and to find that perseverance that actually comes from an earthy place, a practical place, rather than a fiery, courageous warrior place. So combining all of the planets here, I think there's a need to have wisdom that something might take some time and it's okay to learn as you go. Something I heard from a podcast on Christopher Renstrom's channel, who I adore, the way I love how he tells stories. Something he said about Saturn was, Saturn doesn't let you move forward unless you know how to move forward. And so this could be like training grounds to help Mars learn how to move forward with Saturn's tact and responsibility and patience, but also perseverance and endurance. I think we've talked about this on the Nightlight podcast at length about Saturn and Aries and the need to not burn out, or even when we talked about January's pile up in Capricorn with that strong, exalted Mars being reborn in January. Mars is now in domicile and it's taken off from that seeding point in January. So we're needing to not burn out. We're needing to stay focused on the goal that's long term, and to maybe coach ourselves into the ways we can be more mature and tactful about the tangible steps we can take here and now that will result in something greater over time.
I love that the thought of the short term versus the long term feels very relevant here, because there's so much with Aries in general that feels kind of short term, right? It's all about like, let's just go. It's impulsive. It's impatient. It's courageous. It's initiatory. But then we have the Saturn there. We have the Saturn that says, I'm not going to let you do anything until you know how to do it, or until you feel like you're really capable of it. But there is something about, yes, maybe have that Neptunian dream, that eye on the image, the fantasy, the vision for moving forward into the future. Have in your back pocket Saturn, who says, I'm not going to really let you do anything until you're capable to do it. But then what are those steps that I can take in the short term, that I can act on, that I can, move into, that will incrementally, step by step, get me where I want to go? How can I be proactive and bold and courageous in moving in a direction that, even if the end game, I've got like this kind of undefined ideal image of what that is, and I know I can't go from A to Z, I have to, take step by step, but that you can feel empowered in each of those smaller individual actions in the short term, that you are doing something, you're accomplishing something, you're starting something. I love also the idea of, looking at the positivity, right? It's like there's so much said about Mars, Saturn, it's like, that's like the gas pedal and the brake. It's hitting a brick wall, like running at a brick wall at full speed kind of thing. But there's also such potential for, I was about to say the word accomplishment. I feel like that's a little bit like, kind of, the word accomplishment feels too, I don't know, patriarchal to me, like achievement. But something in that vein, right? It's there's the energy, the will to actually accomplish some things, even if they're just small short-term tasks. But those are the ways that we add up when we do step after step after step in the short term, that at least move us much further along towards that end vision, right?
Yeah, and I think you're leading me into another thought of just like strategy. That's just a great word for Aries, Mars, and Saturn coming together.
Yeah.
Developing a strategy that is rooted in your instincts, that are authentic, that are not reactive, but are responding to whatever the context and circumstances are in your life. Because there may be a need to defend something, fight for something. Again, my mind goes to fighting and defending something personally, like within ourselves. Of course, there's a lot going on in the world, so there could be a lot of courage rising in us to come to a place of tapping into our own personal agency and really using our right to enjoy and survive and live in this life personally, to create something that's exciting us again. Because I think there's a lot of reasons right now to feel that hopelessness that sometimes comes with Saturn-Neptune, but it's also about feeling captured by a dream and willing to work hard to create that dream and actualize it. And another thing I was thinking about, I know we're talking about Aries stuff, but Venus is in Taurus, okay? And so, it's about to be Taurus season, so I'm thinking about how we can use what we have. We can resource ourselves with what we have, and we can be innovative with it. This is Uranus' final exit here, and it will not be an Irish goodbye, there will be there will be something that feels important in terms of how we resource ourselves. And I think with the urgency of these Aries transits, it's important to tap into grateful use of our resources and what we have, and not underestimating what we have access to, and to utilize that. And of course, there's also the Plutonian element of this time where like a lot of these planets have passed through a sextile with Pluto. Those can be a little quiet, but I think that there's this courage to use our own will to catapult into the future, or to do something for humanity that feels aligned with our own personal sense of purpose. And I think that's an important part to this, is that Pluto is powering us up, and there's a way in which these transits can feel really satisfying if we approach it with practical strategy.
Yeah. I never look at asteroids. I usually don't have Eris or Chiron in my chart, but you said strategy, and it just like something intuitively I was like, what is going on with Pallas Athena, because she's kind of the goddess of strategy. And on the 20th of April, she is at 28 degrees and change of Pisces. So she's in the last degrees of Pisces. And then by the 26th, which is the same day that Uranus, as you mentioned, is moving into Gemini, Pallas joins the party in Aries. Pallas Athena, the goddess of strategy. She's a war goddess, but a war strategy goddess, right? And I mean, look at that. Sometimes Hermes is speaking. Hermes decided that I should check out and see what the goddess of strategy is doing. And I mean, you can see here, Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini with a sextile to Pallas Athena. And yes, we've got the Pluto there, that the faster moving planets are forming sextiles to Pluto. There is a very Plutonic, empowered conversation that's happening that is underneath the big picture, but that's supportive, that's cooperative. If we really choose to step into it, we could co-create with our fate right now in ways that feel really empowered, and like there is a lot of possibility. And I also love that you bring in, we have a right to live our lives and to enjoy ourselves. We don't have to be suffering to somehow be sacred, right? Like you don't have to suffer to be in sacred places. You can find something sacred and joy in living your life and in achieving things. But I think that this moment really offers us so much vitality. There's something like vital and essential about the placement of the planets throughout all of this time to me that I'm actually kind of excited for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
There could be some hard edges. There could be some frustration. There could be some, some feelings of like the rug is being pulled out from underneath us, or we didn't see something coming and it feels like it's upending things in our lives. For sure. I think all of the planets where they are, there's the possibility for some of that. But the potential for freeing up and for growth and expansion and in an accelerated way and an empowering way feels very real, that potential is there, especially if we strategize, right? Yeah.
I think a lot of my friends, clients, patients, astrologers that I'm close with, we've all been feeling, since October with the grand water trine. I know, sorry to bring it up. We were stuck in that for a while, but really this month feels like, okay, we're finally moving forward from that, just because Mercury is now in Aries. It's the last planet to finally get out of Pisces. And Also, with Mercury ruling the South Node and the Virgo eclipse that we had in March, this
Yes.
feels like we do need to empty something out around the Virgo area of our chart, or maybe it's about like the way we have operationalized or had expectations of outcomes, and then having it all move into cardinal fire is like a reminder that we have agency and we can wield the fire in any way. And of course, being mindful to do so with compassion. And just remember, we did have a Libra full moon recently, so we got to keep in mind the social harmony and the people in our lives. But it does feel like an individuation moment. And especially when Mercury comes into conjunction with Mars and Saturn, there could be a moment of, again, mentally coming online with what this work requires, maybe mentally processing some things all at once, maybe feeling that we need to make a choice, a decision. Maybe both options kind of suck, but maybe you feel like a sense of pride or a sense of satisfaction being able to make the choice for yourself. Maybe that's what this is about, is feeling in charge of your own direction and trajectory right now, because I think that that is an empowering feeling after having a lot of watery transits over the last several months that made us feel like we're kind of riding the waves of life. And of course, as you mentioned, there could be some moments of frustration during these transits, but if you use them to kind of fuel your purpose in a way, again, reacting not so much, but responding to these things, this can feel like an empowering time where you're kind of taking the reins of your life, taking the helm of the ship here. And you know what, we can really carry into the future. Saturn's here, and Saturn will be stationing direct in December at 7 degrees. So this triple conjunction, this new moon with Chiron there, this is all going to kind of be a part of the rest of 2026.
Yeah.
And when Saturn stations direct at the end of the year at 7 degrees, we may be reminded of what we started, and maybe we have the opportunity to renegotiate the terms at the end of the year. But that doesn't mean we don't start now. I'm not afraid of all the Saturn Mars stuff. I don't think that it means we don't take action. I think that it means we do so knowing that we're learning as we go.
Yeah. And I just want to circle back to something that you said way back in the beginning of this conversation. And I think you were speaking about Chiron and Aries, but there's something about not abandoning ourselves. You use that phrase, like that's what this all feels like to me. Even if none of the choices feel right, even if, it's kind of like you're having to choose between a rock and a hard place, right? Mars, Saturn. It's the empowerment in that you get to choose. There's no more abandoning ourselves in this. We have agency. And that means that, yes, we need to own and be responsible for whatever the consequences of our choices are, but that we also get to fully claim the rewards and the benefits of our choices because we made those choices. There's something in this moment that feels very much like no more abandoning ourselves, no more abandoning our agency. We get to own it, and there's something really empowering about that. If you take anything away from this conversation, take that you have agency. You have agency in your life. You are in charge of your own life, right?
Yeah, I love that about Aries energy, is that creative spark, and the lack of certainty is kind of fun. I don't know. For me as a Scorpio rising, I don't have any Aries in my chart, but I always benefit a lot from Aries energy because it helps me to let go of my fixed nature a little bit. And I think we can all find some area of our lives where this creative spark can help us move. Maybe if it's just taking one step, not knowing exactly the path is okay.
Yeah.
Just taking one step.
Yep. Yep. The next right step, right? You probably don't watch all of the Disney movies like I do because I have kids.
I do have nieces.
Yeah, one of the Frozen movies. I can't remember. I think it's the second one where there's a whole song about taking the next right step. That's
I do
it.
know it. Yeah.
Press the go button, take the next right step. That's what this month feels like, right? And with this week in particular, with all this Aries energy.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent way to wrap up our conversation, unless there's anything else that you really feel compelled to add at this moment.
No, I think we covered it. And of course, I am interested to see what unfolds for all of us.
Yes. And please let us know in the comments how this is landing with you, or if you have any stories that feel like they are speaking to this energy in particular. Would love to hear from you, Kelsey. How can people find you? How can they book readings with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at MetaNovaGirl. My website is astrologyrx.com. You can book readings there. And yeah, I post a lot of content on Instagram and love doing one-on-one readings. That's my favorite part of astrology, is getting to know your story.
Yeah. Kelsey does put almost daily the daily energy, well written, and
Thank you.
all of the images that you choose are beautiful too. So definitely go check her out on Instagram. If you want to book a reading with me, and similar to what Kelsey said, what makes me so happy is to connect with you one-on-one. So if you'd like to book a reading with me, you can go to emilytotomer.com. All of the things. Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell. It really does help this channel grow, and lets me know you're out there and you're getting something out of this content. Kelsey, this was so much fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes.
I'm enjoying doing a few more of these collaborative episodes with my friends and amazing astrologers. And good luck, everybody. Have a wonderful Aries new moon and Mercury Mars Saturn conjunction.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Bye.